I am Sharon Holmes. Welcome to the She Shines podcast, where we are empowering you to embrace every facet of who you are, helping you to develop a beautiful balance in life, and encouraging women everywhere to shine. You can follow the She Shines podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to your favorite podcasts. Get in on the conversation. Join the sisterhood at facebook.com/groups/She Shines podcast. So get ready. The She Shines podcast starts right now. Hey squad, what's up? I am back today. And today, you know what? I'm feeling a little sentimental. And so I wanted to talk about something, or someone rather, who is very, very close to my heart. Lately, I have been thinking a lot about my mom. My mom passed away in 2016, and it's not her birthday. It's not, it's not Mother's Day. It's just random. I have just been thinking about my mom a lot, and not necessarily, the sad, melancholy, sort of thing, although there's nothing wrong with that. Grief takes many forms, and it is a process to deal with that. But it's been about 3 years now, and I guess some of the things that I felt during that time are coming back and giving me a chance to process it now when it's safe. So I've just been thinking a lot about her, and I've been laughing a lot because my mother was a really funny person. So let me just say her name to honor her. My mother's name was Lurleen Davis, and just a beautiful, beautiful human being. She was someone who never called attention to herself. Probably if you combined all of my sisters and me, you would get kind of a total picture of who she was, because we all bear little parts of her, and it definitely does take the whole of us to make one of her. But she was just a wonderful woman, didn't call a lot of attention to herself, but was always there to help people, always wanted to be, of assistance in some sort of form. And her children were her life. And sometimes I think maybe I didn't know how to honor that the way I should have, because in my mind, I had so many things that I would want to do. But my mother told me one time, she goes, I've been a mother for so long. That's all I really know how to be. And that's what I want to be, is just the best mother. And I realize now the value in that, and just, some of the different things that she shared with me. It goes without saying that my mother meant the world to me. And so as I've been reflecting over the past month or so, I've just been kind of gleaning some lessons, or gleaning something from the lessons that she taught me. And some of the greatest lessons in this life, let me tell you, have been learned from my mother. How to be selfless. My mother, she would go without in order for me and my siblings and my dad to have. There were some times, of course, as you could imagine, with one paycheck and a whole bunch of kids, there was a slew of us. We were the Davis clan, that many of us. And with so many of us, my mother never really complained, but whatever she had, she took it and she divided it among us and made sure that our needs were met. And sometimes that did mean that her needs had to go without, or that she had to go without, but still for us, she did what she had to do so that we would be able to have. And it was such a great sacrifice and a great lesson to be learned in just selflessness. And then another thing that my mother taught me was dignity. How to have dignity. Sometimes we wrap up who we are in what we have. And I remember one time my mother talking to me when I was much younger. I probably was 11 or 12. And I would imagine that it probably came from a conversation of me wanting some British Knights. That was the gym shoe back then that we wore. Yeah, I kind of dated myself, didn't I? Y'all probably don't even know what that is, right? But I wanted some BKs. And we couldn't always afford like the latest and greatest. Like, I never owned a pair of Jordans. That just didn't happen for me. It was fine. It was fine. We were always clean. We always looked good. Just maybe it didn't have the brand name on it. So I would imagine maybe this conversation came from something like that. But I remember my mother talking to me one time, and she was letting me know, you may not have what other people have. You may not have a nice home, as nice a home as they have. But guess what? You have a home. You may not have as nice clothes or the brand name clothes that they have, but you have clothes. And she taught me how to appreciate what I have and to have dignity and respect for what I have. I remember her telling me one time, if you clean your own home and make it as beautiful as you can make it, then you'll enjoy it and other people can enjoy it too. It's not about how big it is. It's not about how many bedrooms it has. It's not about how many bathrooms it has, but it's about taking care of what you have. And truly, I put that one to test, right? Because my family was so huge. We'd always have tons of friends over for Christmas and holidays and all of that, especially because my mom would make the bomb sweet potato pies. Like nobody can do that like her. Just hasn't been done since. I try, I fail. She was the one who did all of that. And I would put that to the test. I would clean up. I would add my own little special things that I wanted to add to decorate the bathrooms, things like that. And the people who would come over, I knew they had prettier homes than I did. I knew they had more money than I did or than my family did. But they were always complimenting the little touches that we added here and there, whether it was lace that I had sewn onto towels to make my own custom towels or whatever it was. And so I found out my mother was right about that. If you appreciate and respect what you have, then you'll be happy with it. And other people can see the value in that. Yeah, they can see the value in you too, if you take the time to appreciate yourself, right? And then she taught me the value of family and togetherness. That goes without saying. My mom was like a family woman and always wanted her family to be close and her children to be together. That wasn't a one-sided thing. My dad was that way as well. But talking about mommy today, Dad, and she would have Sunday dinners. You know, it was a way of life for me. I didn't know it was like a popular thing until the movie Soul Food came out in the 90s. And everybody was like, "Ooh, we need to start back to having Sunday dinners." And I'm going, did we ever stop? Because my mother would cook a pot roast. She would throw, a roast in the oven before she left out for Sunday school or whatever it was. My mother would be up at like 5 a.m. on Sundays cooking dinner. And then by the time we got up to get dressed, like her food was coming out of the oven and all she had to do was just rewarm it when we got home from church. And we'd all get together for these family dinners and all of that. And it was just fantastic because that was the precedent my mother set, like family is supposed to stick together. All of my church people that are listening, I have to give the disclaimer. My mother did teach us not to go out and start fights. But in the spirit of togetherness, one of us should not come home with a black eye when there are 4 more of us around. Like if it jumps off, we better not come home hurt. Like you can't come home squeaky clean and your sister's outfit is dirty from fighting on the playground. It doesn't work like that. All in, all for one. Again, don't fight. But if you have to, it's going to be a togetherness thing because when one goes down, we all go down. So my mom was just that type of person. And the one thing I wish she was alive and well to get over to this generation is not to let a family dispute become a public spectacle. In the day and age of social media, there is so much that we just put out there and we put these battles out there and all of that. And you know what? That stuff belongs behind closed doors. Nobody needs to know that, but you and the person that you are disputing with. And if you really want to be reconciled to that person, you don't want everybody to know. I remember my mother and my sister telling me this. If you have a fight with your husband, don't come and give your family all of the details because guess what? You're going to make up with him and you're going to want to spend the rest of your life with him. And we're still going to be mad. So she taught us, don't go out and fight in public. 11 sisters and brothers, 12 children, there's some disagreements. Everybody's not going to see things the same way. But again, it does not have to go outside of that household. And I know when we did our domestic violence show, we talked a little bit about that. What happens at home stays at home. And when it's an unhealthy environment, you may need to reach out. Now, my environment, thank God, was a healthy environment where we didn't have physical fights and things like that. We had disagreements over whose turn it was to operate the remote control. And so she taught us, even if you're angry at each other at home, when you go out in public, you guys have to show a united front and you have to be there for one another. And that's something that we still do, like to this very day. It's hilarious. Like my sister and I can disagree about something, and my husband will laugh all day. We will like back and forth. No, but look at it like this. And the next 5 minutes, we're sitting back, chilling, eating chips, no love lost, because we learned how to do that in a healthy way from my mom. Disagree, but it doesn't mean you have to hate each other. But now, as I think back on my mom's life, I began to realize that some of the greatest lessons that I learned from her did not come in the form of her 5 minutes to live by. 5 minutes to live by was the name that my brother gave to her lectures. So if you did something that you weren't supposed to do, or whatever the case may be, my mother would lecture you. And I preferred the lecture over a spanking, whooping. You know, I didn't like getting whoopings. I was scared and they hurt it. So I'd rather listen to you talk. But my mother was famous for her 5 minutes to live by. She could tell you what you did, why you did it, why you shouldn't ever do it again. And when she finally let you up off that couch, baby, bye. It was like, please, can I please just get outside to my friends? But the greatest lessons I learned from her were not learned from her lips at all. They actually came from her decade-long battle, actually more than a decade long. She battled Alzheimer's disease. And in the beginning, nobody knew. She didn't tell us. She knew, but she didn't tell us that she had Alzheimer's. She didn't tell us that she had been diagnosed. And I remember being in the hospital with another relative, and the lady in the next bed told me, she said, my husband has Alzheimer's. She said, it's an ugly disease. And I could see that she was kind of, going through something about it, And so I didn't want to ask her questions, but that always stuck in my mind. What does she mean? It's an ugly disease. Little did I know that years later, I would find out firsthand what this lady meant when she said that it was an ugly disease, because it does rob you of the person that you love while they're still there with you. But in the beginning, it just looked like normal stuff. Mom will forget where she put something or whatever, and we'd have to look for it. Well, that wasn't really different from when we were children growing up. So we didn't really take a cue from that. But then once it became more pronounced, then she began to forget other things that we knew she should know. And that's how we kind of knew that there was really something more going on. And then once the disease took full hold of her, there were periods when she was just gone. She was very quiet. My mother was never really a quiet person. She was never a person that called a lot of attention to herself. She was always on the phone. She was always talking to us or whatever. And she became very quiet simply because she could not remember the words that she needed to in order to express her ideas. But every now and then you would get a glimpse of who she was. And I love those times. Like, there were times when my mother was a sanctified old church mother. And there were times after she got Alzheimer's and didn't really even know who I was, but I would be in pain or I would have whatever sickness or whatever going on. And I could lay my mother's hand on the site that was hurting and tell her to pray for me. And at first she would be kind of, looking like she didn't know what to say or she didn't know what to do. But then in a few minutes it would kick in. And I'm telling you, when that woman started speaking in tongues, whatever pain it was, whatever you were going through, whatever situation it was about to turn around. Like, it was done. And it truly, in a few hours, if that long, I would feel better because that part of her would still come back. And then her laughter. My mother was a jokester. And a lot of people don't know that about her because she was quiet when you saw her in public. But my mother loved to laugh and she would tell jokes. And even in her sickness, she would joke and it would be so hilarious. And the singing, my mother. Now, I'm not saying she should make CDs, but she loved to sing. And that was one of the things that kind of carried us through the entire process of the disease. was being able to put on music that she could listen to, because long after she forgot the words she needed to say to express herself, she could remember songs. And so we would just play the songs that she could remember. My mother loved this song by Ruben Studdard called I Need an Angel. I don't know what drew her to that song, but she loved that song. And my mother knew, like, oh, how do you know all the words to that song? You don't even know my name. Chick, what's going on? But she knew all the words to the song, and she would sing those songs. And I remember one time in particular when my husband and I were there for Christmas, and my husband plays the piano. So he was playing whatever Christmas carols or whatever we wanted to sing. And the whole family was singing. And so my mother kept like veering off and trying to lead the song instead of sing background with the rest of us. And so I told her, I said, Mom, I said, you're supposed to be singing background with me. And she was just going on, leading the songs, taking the songs from whoever was singing it. And so finally we got to one song, Joy to the World. And my mother didn't remember the words to the song. And so she was sitting there. I said, come on, Mom, sing with me. And she started moving her mouth, not to the words of the song, but it looked like she was saying watermelon, watermelon. And she started moving her mouth. And as funny as it was, my husband bust out laughing and stopped playing. And I actually have that memory on tape, and I go back and I watch it from time to time. But the lesson that I learned from that is fake it till you make it, baby. Sometimes in life, you're not going to have everything together. But you know what? In those moments, you just have to fake it till you make it. And you'll find out that your whole world doesn't have to crash around you simply because you don't have what it is that you need. She needed the words to the song. She didn't have them at that time. But guess what? We all got the memory from that. We got the moment. We got the laughter from that, which was much more than we would have gotten if she had known every word to the song. And so sometimes, lesson learned, mama, I just got to fake it till I make it, right? And that's cool. And don't get me wrong, there were a lot of heartbreaking times throughout the process. But I think that in the aftermath, you can look at some of the things that were done and really understand that there was so much to learn from it. Before we really even knew that she had Alzheimer's, she took me to the bank. She told me, can you take me to the bank? I said, sure. She said, I want to put your name on my bank account. She said, you never know what's going to happen. She had it it made sense. Logically, it made sense. She said, you never know what's going to happen. My mother did not use ATM cards. She went to the bank. She said, but I want you to have an ATM card just in case something happens and you need to access some money for me. I can just send you to get money from the ATM. I don't really need to go to the bank. Okay, Mom, I'll go down. So I took her down and I put my name on her accounts. I didn't know that my mom was setting things in order. I didn't know she was making provision and preparation where we would be able to access her funds when she no longer remembered how to do that. So lesson learned from that, get your business done. You don't have to wait until the bottom falls out of your world in order to get moving. You can be proactive. You can look and see some things that are going down the line. And I think now when I look back on it, I can only imagine how I would be reeling if I had learned that I had a disease that would eventually take my memories away from me. But in the process of that, she was able to be stable enough that she could get her business done and set things in order so that when we needed to have that provision to take care of her, it would be at our disposal. So lesson learned, mama, get your business done. And then I remember, oh man, this was a big one. It is now when I look back on it, I can laugh about it. At the time, I was doing anything but laughing. So my mom had even gotten to the point in her health where her health had declined and she had to do dialysis. If you're not familiar with dialysis, it's a process of cleaning your blood and it takes hours. So every week, 3 days a week for 4 hours, she would have to sit at a dialysis center and they would hook her up to a machine and the machine would clean her blood. So you had one tube that was coming out that brought the blood out of your veins. There was another tube that returned the blood. And so I remember one particular morning, and Fridays were my dialysis day. So on Fridays, I would go with her and I would sit there from whatever time, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And they would do dialysis. Well, for someone who is at themselves and, has all of their faculties, it's a terrible process. I'm just going to be honest. It's not something that you necessarily want to do because it's time consuming and you have to sit there, and sometimes it makes you not feel good. But at the same time, when you don't have your mental faculties, it makes it a bit more of a challenge. Let me put it like that. And I remember when my mother first went on, she dreaded dialysis day. She hated to go. She didn't want to do it. And she told me, she said, you know what, Sharon, I had to come to the conclusion, these people are trying to save my life. And so I'm going to let them do what they got to do. It wasn't pleasant for her. Ooh, that's an extra bonus lesson. I didn't think about that. It might not be pleasant, but if it's going to benefit your life, babies, hang in there. But this one particular day, it was a Friday dialysis day. That was my day. And I woke up. It just started out all wrong. I was working on maybe about 2 hours of sleep that day. And it was going to be a long day because it was a dialysis day. And then I had to go to something they were having at church that night that I had to be at. So I already knew that I was going to be out of house for 12 hours, 13 hours. It was a bad hair day, so I had no idea what I was going to do with my hair in order to get myself ready to go to this church service. And so we go to dialysis, and the way that they would do it, since my mom had dementia, was that they would send us out of the room so that they could hook her up to the machines. They needed to be in a sterile environment. And then after they got her hooked up, eventually they would come and call us to come back. And so they did that. They sent us out of the room, sent me out of the room. They hooked her up to the machines. And then the technician came and told me, well, they don't want anybody to come to the back, so you can go and do whatever. And I'm like, no, I can't leave my mom. She's like, I got her. I'll watch her. I got her. So she had my phone number. She had my mom. So I said, okay, it's already been a tough day. Let me go and grab some coffee. I went and got coffee, literally 5 minutes down the street to McDonald's, got coffee, came back. And when I came back, it was as if all HE double hockey sticks had broken loose. The tech comes running to the front to see if I'm still there. I'm just walking in the door. So I'm like, oh God, what's going on? Apparently my mother forgot that she was supposed to not touch the lines that were removing or returning the blood from her arm. When the tech took me to the back, it looked like a crime scene. It really did. It was like there was blood, all over the wall, and they were cleaning it up and everything. My mom was fine, but she didn't remember that she was supposed to leave the leads in. Don't take them out. But the lesson that I learned from this one was when I got there and I was talking to her, very calmly, hey, Mom, what's going on? Are you okay? And she was like, yeah. And she had no recollection of what had happened. None. It was just like all of it was gone. And I'm sitting here going, I was thoroughly disgusted that day. I'm going, God, look at the wall. I could see the wall. And then I see my mom sitting in another spot and she's so calm and collected. But the lesson from that, things happen. Life is going to happen. It's going to be messy. You can't stay in that moment. Yeah, I know it was because she had Alzheimer's and she wasn't able to physically remember what had happened. But what lesson can I take away from it, especially today, looking back on it? You're not going to be able to change things all the time. But in the aftermath of it, after it's happened, you got to let some of that stuff go. And I remember even after she had gotten to the point where she had forgotten our names, she could still remember her sisters. And I thought, that's strange. I'm her baby. I'm the baby child. She doesn't remember my name, but she could still remember her sisters. And the lesson learned from that, I got you loud and clear, Mama. Don't forget your foundation. Don't forget the bridge that brought you over. So many times as in life, we have people who have been really, really valuable and helping us to become who we are today. And it seems like once we get to where we call success, we completely forget those people. But don't forget your foundations. Don't forget where you came from. You just might have to cross back over that bridge. Or guess what? It may be your job to go back to that bridge and pull them across. So do not forget your foundation. And then the last thing that I'll leave with you, the lesson that I learned from my mom, It was a very frustrating situation. But when people are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, they will ask you the same question over and over and over and over. They'll keep asking you the same question. And my mom would do that. She would get so fixated on whatever it was. Can you take me home? Whatever the question was, or, whatever it was. She would get so fixated on it. And she would keep asking me over and over and over. And at first, I would get really frustrated about it. And then I learned how to deal with that thing. I learned that although for me, it was happening over and over again, for her, it was the very first time. And so the lesson I learned from that is be patient, because you're going to go through some things in life. You're going to have some situations occur, and you're going to need to be able to help somebody else. And they might be the 5th or 6th or 20th person who comes to you for help with the exact same thing. And you've got to treat them just like it's the first time. Why? Because it is the first time for them. And bonus lesson from that, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep on asking, keep on knocking, keep on seeking until you get the answer that you desire. And so I would definitely say that some of the greatest lessons I learned from my mom came after she didn't even know she was teaching me. Now, I could go on and on about my mother. I seriously could. I could probably do another 2 hours about some lessons that I learned from my mom and the things that I've been thinking about over the past month or so. And I definitely have to acknowledge it was a huge struggle at times. But I didn't do this show because I wanted to be sad. I did this show because I wanted to honor my mother, and I wanted to actually just speak a word of encouragement to you, because maybe you're dealing with a tough situation. Maybe it's not a family member who has Alzheimer's, but maybe you're dealing with something else that's tough for you. But let me encourage you by saying that it isn't for nothing. Okay, I know that's not grammatically correct. Nothing is wasted. Whatever it is that you're going through, whatever tough situation you find yourself facing, just know that it's not wasted. There's going to be good that comes from that, even if it's just the lesson learned, even if it's just what you can take into your future to help your future be just a little bit brighter. Everything that you are going through or have gone through will help someone, and that someone just might be you. So until next time, I encourage you to learn from what you and other people have gone through. But most of all, let the lessons that you teach not only come from your lips, but let them come from your life. See you next time. You have been listening to the She Shines podcast, where we are empowering you to embrace every facet of who you are, helping you to develop a beautiful balance in life, and encouraging women everywhere to shine. If you are a woman who shines and you want to see someone else shine too, join the sisterhood at facebook.com/groups/She Shines podcast, and you can share the shine. To get instant updates on our podcast, subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, or Spotify. I'm your host, Sharon Holmes. Until next time, shine on.